There are few more universal truths than stating that fans of Battletech love mechs. They're big, stompy, and packed with weaponry. They show up in small, medium, large, and even extra large sizes. They can be painted in a wide variety of colors, and are sure to leave an impression anywhere they go. However, is that enough of an explanation for our love affair with the BattleMech? I'm not so sure. I think the waters run a little deeper than this, and I'm willing to invest literal minutes into explaining how. Join me? I've distilled my thoughts on why we love BattleMechs down to 3 basic categories. I'll do my best to keep my thoughts organized, though if you've followed the channel for any amount of time, you know my brain is full of frogs that each want to do something different at any given moment. But I digress. The first reason for why we love BattleMechs is a category I'm calling aesthetics. It's perhaps the most obvious and easily explained of the reasons, which is why it comes first. I don't want to lose too many of you this early in the video by dropping the heavyweights right away. This category includes all the reasons why people can just look at a BattleMech and say, yeah, that's cool. I think Demi-Percenter X Omega Martin Overstreet hits on this in his comments concerning some of what people consider the original mechs of 3025 Battletech. No matter how much things change, they always stay the same. Isn't that the axiom of the ages? Especially when it comes to mankind and his fascination with war. In 2439, the Terran hegemony unveiled the BattleMech. From that point on, war would never be the same. Like the Panzer, Adams, and Manticore tanks of previous eras, the Wasp, Shadowhawk, and Warhammer soon became household names. Metal giants to foster fables, scare children, and inspire men to greatness. A half millennia has passed since those first mechs began to walk off the assembly line. Since that time, a legion of new designs loaded with amazing new technology has appeared over the centuries. With such an abundance of BattleMechs to choose from, especially as higher technology designs were developed, it would seem logical to assume that those original mechs would have been lost to the annals of time long ago. Logic does not always work like it should. It cannot be denied that these ancient designs, reborn like the phoenix into a new form, will likely be around for another half millennia to come. The mechs from the past continue to serve us, amaze us, with their utility, beauty, and persistent ability to spite the steady march of time. Martin Overstreet, Demi-Percenter X Omega, Comstar Archives, Tukid, 1st of October, 3067. What I think our friend is hinting at is that there's something special about a well-designed piece of technology that human beings are just drawn to on a very basic level. Logic doesn't always play into that feeling. We look at a Marauder, a Warhammer, and yes, even a Shadowhawk, and we know there's something cool there. A good mech designer knows that there's something to the process of mech creation beyond just slapping a bunch of armor plates and missile pods on a wire frame. Sorry, Technical Readout 3060. This feeling isn't limited to the 3025 designs, however, there seems to be a concentration of viscerally good-looking mechs from that time period. When we see one, we might not be able to describe how, but we know. Oh yes, we know. The second category that I think explains why we love mechs is their status in-universe as the ultimate example of technological prowess. Human beings are fascinated by technology and have been for as long as anyone can sort out in the anthropological record. From wielding fire to simple stone tools to Clovis points chipped from volcanic glass, human beings have survived and thrived due to the use of technology. The descriptions of a mech have changed slightly over the years and have adopted a growing specificity over time. The current description from the BattleMech manual includes an in-universe list of qualifications. Standing 7 to 16 meters tall and weighing from 20 to 100 tons. Powered by an armored and shielded fusion reactor. Skeleton of honeycombed foamed aluminum core wrapped with stressed silicon carbide monofilament and sheathed by a rigid titanium steel shell. Say that 10 times fast. Locomotion generated via bundles of polyacetylene fiber myomer muscles. Protected by aligned crystal steel over a layer of boron nitride impregnated with diamond monofilaments. Mounting a swath of powerful weapons from charged particle beams to lasers, missiles to rapid-fire autocannons, all at the command of the noble elite, the Mechwarriors. The modern BattleMech is the end result of more than 3,000 years of battlefield technology development. Combining awesome destructive power and unparalleled maneuverability, the BattleMech is perhaps the most complex machine ever produced. The undisputed master of 31st century warfare, the BattleMech seems destined to reign supreme for centuries to come. Fans of Battletech are often fans of technology. Gigantic stomping mechs with thousands of moving parts, fantastical technologies, all designed around making an individual incredibly powerful, are a tantalizing attraction. Add in that these mechs are most often weapons of war, and oh boy, you're off to the races. These two, and sometimes four-legged machines, are a force multiplier that completely dominated the outcome of events following their introduction in 2439. So much so that these early mech designs were burned into humanity's consciousness. As we heard from Martin Overstreet, the mechs from the past continue to serve us and amaze us with their utility, beauty, and persistent ability to spite the steady march of time. Outside of the universe of Battletech, this holds true. Even though technology has progressed from the 1980s in ways that weren't predicted, people still have a fascination for large bipedal mechs that arguably would find difficulties succeeding on even a modern 21st century battlefield. With drones, cruise missiles, and GPS-guided artillery, and the rise of the handheld anti-tank guided missile, a BattleMech would struggle for many of the same reasons that modern tanks do. Largely, they're big, expensive targets. However, this doesn't seem to diminish the fan love for the BattleMech. Paradoxically, it seemed to only entrench people in their passion for mechs. So is that enough to explain why people like mechs? I think there's still one more piece missing. I think the best explanation can be found by looking at the most important part of a mech. Not the fusion engine, gyro, or even the PPC, but the Mechwarriors that pilot them. In the Mechwarrior Legends book, the introduction touches upon this idea by highlighting the fact that the Battletech universe is defined by both mechs and the Mechwarriors that pilot them. The two are inexorably linked, and the fate of one often determines the fate of the other. The book reads, "More than the universe-sweeping politics, more than the large-scale wars and conflicts, the purest Battletech stories come down to one Mechwarrior and their mech fighting to change the course of history, whether for good or for ill." Our final category, if you'll indulge me, is the connection between mech and Mechwarrior. To bolster this argument, one of my favorite Battletech moments from the novels comes from William H. Keith Jr.'s first entry in the Grey Death Legion saga, titled Decision at Thunder Rift. In this story, as with so many other Battletech stories, the characters are driving the story, and the mechs are the vehicles, literally and metaphorically, for creating and resolving conflict. After seeing his father killed in his Phoenix Hawk and his father's mercenary unit obliterated from within, Grayson Death Carlisle is forced to grow up very quickly. Only through his bravery and quick thinking is he able to avoid the same fate as his father. Roughly a third of the way through the novel, Grayson directly challenges the supremacy of the BattleMech. This is a fascinating turn of events, since the Decision at Thunder Rift is often suggested to new Battletech fans as the entry novel. Here we are with a main character that's throwing the battlefield supremacy of the BattleMech into question, as the forces he's leading manage to corner a 20-ton Locust mech in an alley. What happens next in the story is incredibly cool, as the reality of the situation and the decisions made by the Locust pilot only become completely clear after the event takes place. Grayson grabs an Inferno SRM launcher and steps out in front of the Locust, leading to a showdown between mech and man. Keith writes, "The Locust pilot spoke, the voice electronically reproduced in a gravelly amplified bass. What do you want? Don't touch your weapons. I want you to come out of there unarmed. If I even imagine I see a weapon move in my direction, I will fire." There was a pause, and Grayson could hear the sharp ping of hot metal cooling on the mech's hull, could smell the sour rubber stink of melted circuit insulation. The temperature inside must be. "All right," said the pilot. "Don't shoot, I'm coming out." If you haven't read the book, sorry for the spoilers. The scene is important not just because Grayson saves that Mechwarrior's life twice over, but because it shows the connection between the destinies of pilot and mech. It's also really cool because that Mechwarrior, Lori Kalmar, ends up being one of Grayson's strongest allies, not just in that novel, but the subsequent stories as well, as she really grows to be a legendary Mechwarrior in her own right. With this, I think we're getting closer to what I think is so alluring about BattleMechs. We have the surface level stuff, like the fact that they're powerful in universe, look cool for the most part, and are an important part of the stories of characters we've grown to love and sometimes hate. If you need another example, Let's jump forward to one of my favorite Clan Jade Falcon Mechwarriors. No, not Aiden, who has his own complicated history with BattleMechs, but Mechwarrior Joanna. Though most famous for being the one who finally killed Natasha Kerensky, I think the line from Falcon Guard here is an interesting example of how Mechwarriors see their relationships with mechs. Robert Thurston writes, "Add to that the abilities of the massive piece of fighting machinery called a BattleMech, and who knew what might be possible? Joanna had neither much faith nor liking for humanity in general, but she had confidence to spare in herself. As for mechs, she respected them to the point of reverence." Joanna's faith in her machines takes precedence over that of people, and one could argue rightfully so in a dangerous reality of clan power structure. Her abrasive nature and inability to play well with others left her with the only true friend a Mechwarrior can know, that being their BattleMech. So why do we love the BattleMech? It's not as easy an answer as one might think. I think it's a combination of things that mix to demonstrate value. We love BattleMechs because they're big stompy pieces of technology that empower characters to do amazing things that affect change in their universe. If there is a more common and substantive desire across humanity, I don't know what it would be. We all have our favorites, from the plucky locust to the indomitable king crab. There's a mech for really every type of play and interest. Some prefer to obliterate their targets from a distance, while others get up close and ruin their opponent's day with melee weapons. Isn't that great? I really appreciate you watching. I hope you had some fun thinking about mechs and why we love them so much. If you have a thought on something that I missed, feel free to drop it in the comments and keep the conversation going. Do you have a mech that you think is the best example of what it means to be a BattleMech? I want to hear about it. Big thank you to the Ko-Fi supporters who are helping keep the lights on. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.